All right.
Oh
We're in.
my goodness, we are live. The struggle was real right now, guys. I am on my phone, it doesn't want to work on my computer, so bear with me if this does not, if this, I don't know, if it's glitchy. So here we are. I was hoping we were going to do like a whole intro, like our,
Oh,
our
we
little
are.
dance.
Let's talk about sex,
Let's
baby.
talk
Let's talk
about
about
sex,
you
baby.
and me.
Let's talk
Okay, you
about
can't be
you
off.
and me. Let's,
We're supposed to
but
sing it
it's so,
together. It's over. It's done. Cut
oh,
it out.
I thought we
Oh,
were
and
singing.
look at you could be the salt and I could be the pepper. Or the other way around. It's all good. We're not drawing
I'm
out color
definitely
here.
I'm definitely the salt.
Okay.
Okay, talk for a moment. I'm just gonna switch over because again, I'm on my phone, so bear with me for one quick sec.
Okay, no
Because
problem.
this is what
So
technology
the
is like.
volume is kind of odd. Can you hear me okay? And now she's gone.
Can I hear you
All
okay?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it okay on my end? Okay, perfect. So today we want
So
to start
far
our
so good.
three-part
I don't see you.
conversation.
Uh,
Okay. Okay, let's
I don't
start.
know if you see
We
me.
can I
There we
see
go.
you, I
Okay.
hear you. Let's get going.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So, hi, Connie. So tonight, Siobhan and I are having candid conversations as usual, as per every Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can also find us on YouTube. I put our YouTube channel link in the StreamYard post. And tonight, we're going to start off our three-part series talking about sex. Do you want to try one more time with our song? Okay.
Can we
A
try it?
one and a two and a one, two, three. Let's talk
Let's
about
talk
sex.
about sex, baby.
Stop. We're done. It's over. It's never going to happen.
Next time we'll play the song.
Okay, that's a great idea. Okay.
Okay.
So hopefully we won't have technical difficulties again. Okay, so
Yeah.
tonight's conversation. So what we're going to do is tonight we're going to talk about kind of the development of our sexual awakening, our identity, how we grew up, talking about sex in the home and our first kind of sexual experiences. Not all of them are good though. So
Yeah.
once again, I don't know if we've ever said this in our candid conversations, but if you get triggered by something that we are discussing, please know that there's many places that you can get assistance. There's helplines and your family doctor, and reach out to a friend, even us if you want to. So before we get going, oh, and next week we're going to talk about our lives right now, like not our lives. We're not going to delve into our sexual lives today. Nobody needs to know that. I don't have one. And but we're going to talk about our identity as the adults that we are today. And the final session will be about how we can improve the relationship we have with ourselves, our sexual selves, and our partners.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Something. Oh, I was going to say something very important that we do see your comments, but if you do not want your comment shared, please just put any emoji at all at the end of your comment, and we will not share it on the stream because your face shows on there. But we'd love to know what you think, and we're going to ask some questions along the way. So once again, if you don't want us to share your comment, then just put an emoji on there, and I'll probably remind people as we go, depending on who comes into the conversation. So, Siobhan, how are
Yes.
you feeling about this conversation about sex?
I am so pumped up. I am the person in my group of friends who I'm like, bring me your questions about sex. Bring me what do you want to know? Like let's talk all the things. I am always so pumped up for these things. So when we started talking about it, I was like, I can't wait to have this conversation. But I know for a lot of people, this is such an icky, uncomfortable conversation. And it's because it's uncomfortable with our partners. It's because it's uncomfortable with ourselves. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is why it's such a great place to even start with this. How are you feeling about this?
I'm excited about it. I mean, I am a teacher and I've taught parenting numerous times, and I love the opportunity to talk to kids about sex because I don't think we're open enough about it as people and adults, and we kind of just let our students, oh boy, is it Friday yet? No, our children figure things out for themselves. And one of the things that was a theme throughout every timeline period was the topic of pornography, and so we'll go there too. But I'm
Uh-huh.
excited because I'm very open about talking about sex, and that makes me think about my mom. So I've shared before that my mom died when I was 14, and I didn't have a father in my life at the time. My earliest memories of sex, it's really funny. So I was thinking about things. One of the things that I remember is my aunt had this book for my cousins. Where did I come from? And this book is hilarious. I have to just show you. Okay, wait. This is what the sperm looks like and the eggs.
It's
Oh no, this is all the sperm.
oh,
You have to see the couple, okay? Sorry. Oh,
so the
here's a picture
sperm
of
has a
them.
top hat. Okay.
Yeah. Look at this is the couple having sex. So this
Yeah,
book is from like the 70s. Look at there's pictures. So
that's
I
very
ended up
accurate. Yeah.
Yep. I remembered this book from when I was much younger and I bought it for my kids and I never really talked about it. It was just there. And I remember them kind of looking at it. We did talk about it. And it was when they were young and they didn't think it's weird because they had seen their mom and dad naked. And
Yeah.
later on, but we'll talk about that after. I wanted to talk about how to talk about to kids about sex. But growing up, my mom, um, she had some penthouse magazines hidden in her closet. My mom also had some interesting little things. Like she sold sex toys at some point, I suppose. And I remember finding some ice cube trays that were breasts and penises. And anyways, I came across these penthouse magazines, and I remember that was the first time I ever saw what a penis looked like. I was like, that is ugly. Like what? And but I did like reading the stories. So I don't know if anybody else knows that this is pornography back in the day, like looking at Penthouse magazine. And but my mom talked to me about sex before she passed, and I remember her telling me that she's like, I'm not going to tell you to wait till you're married, but just know that you can never take it back. So that's all I remember, that to make sure it's a special moment for you. And I'm really glad she left me with that kind of thought about it. But I think she was really open, um, but not in an inappropriate way. Just like my mom was liberal and open about all kinds of stuff, and it made me comfortable to go to her. Now, mind you, I didn't lose my virginity until I was 18, and we were so in love. We were both virgins. It was like such a sweet, romantic experience, like no regrets at all. Not everybody has that. So those are my early days, at least for that part of it. What about you, Siobhan?
All right. So as we're going along, I can't see the comments because I'm on my phone. So
That's okay.
if you guys are going along right now and you want to tell us about your early experiences, type that in now.
Yeah.
My early experience, I also found the penthouses, but they were my grandparents, and I
Love it.
they're a different kind of era, the older lady penthouses. So that was a really weird thing for me. And I remember being much younger, and I tapped into my parents' sex toys, and I was like, there's a lot going on here. I don't know what's happening. And I found a deck of cards, and they were gag gifts to my parents for some birthday, and they were all just men tied up, attached to their penises and in bondage. And
Oh,
I had never
oh,
seen anything like this before.
interesting.
And I brought it
Oh,
over to one of my little friends' houses because I thought it was really funny.
no.
And so then I'm showing her this deck of cards of all these really inappropriate things, and she thought her mom would think it was hilarious. So we showed her mother, and her mom lost her shit and made me go home with my dirty cards, and then called my mom, freaking out, being like, what the fuck is your kid bringing over to my house? Why is she showing my child these men? And yeah, so that was one of my youngest, earliest memories. And I grew up Catholic, so I was always told no sex before marriage.
Hmm.
So not married, lost my virginity at 15. Mine was loving in the sense that it was like the little boy that I'd loved since I was in grade 5. And then one day when we were in high school, we were like, I'm a virgin, you're a virgin, I love you, I want this to mean something, maybe we should have sex. And that's what happened. And then, yeah, that was it, really awkward, and never had sex again with that guy. So knocked that one right out of the park.
That's so funny.
That was me.
It's funny hearing you say like 15. So, for those of you who don't know, I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and it's so weird to imagine that they could be sexually active. I don't believe either of them are. I'm not sure if they would talk to me about it. They're not as talkative as I am, although we do talk about sex. I actually told my sons, I said, if you want to watch the video, Siobhan and I will be talking at 7. He's like, no, thank you, not at all. And then I remember the first time I gave them the sex talk, we were out for a walk, and I said, let's talk about where babies actually come from. And I think I was pregnant with Lucy. And so it doesn't seem like it was that long ago since she's only, well, it'd be almost 4 years ago, I guess. And I remember telling them, and Marcus is like, oh my God, I can't unknow that. Oh my God. And I'm like, and this is Maya, who's, a year and a half younger than Marcus. Like, get over it, guy. Like, get over it. And I'm like, so my younger child is like telling my older child to get over it. I have to see. So hold on. Oh, I was like, where are my glasses? I'm trying to look different without my glasses on, but I literally can't read anything. So here they go. So I have to share this. Connie, you did not put an emoji, so it's going up. So Connie says that her mom gave her a brown paper bag with a bra, pad, a belt. If you know that was, I don't know, but I know of it, and a book. That was your early sex education.
Wow.
I remember when I first got my period. I don't remember anyone talking to me about my period, but I don't think maybe because I got it early. I have no idea. And but my mom was in Jamaica and my Oma was with me. And she's like, oh, Candace, I'll help you with that. Don't worry. And she just, but there was no conversation about it. She just took my dirty underwear, cleaned them up, I suppose, and we moved on. And I don't remember. That is kind of a block for me. I don't remember. I guess it couldn't have been traumatic, and it was just like whatever.
It's funny. My mom was in Mexico and my grandma was with me.
Really interesting. I'm so glad that my Oma was so sweet to me. Like, and I was comfortable with my body. Here's another question for you then. Okay, Connie, I'm going to put this back over there. Maybe if you have another one, you can share. How the heck do I get? Oh, there we go. So I've got some questions written down, and I did some research because that's what I do. So one thing I noticed is that our sexual health is developed over our lifespan. So, and that's why I'm really glad that we're talking about the way that we are, because actually, okay, here's the secret. Last week, daycare, no, it wasn't last week, it was a couple weeks ago, daycare said to me that Lucy was like lounging on the couch at daycare with her underwear open and her fingers up in her vajayjay. And she's like, I know that's normal. I just wanted to let you know because I don't want any kids to make fun of her. And I'm like, I've never seen Lucy do that. So today I saw her again for the first time since that conversation. And she's like, well, I haven't seen Lucy do anything. I said, neither have I. I've still never seen my little one, so Lucy's only 3, touching her. I mean, not that but not like doing stuff. Like not like, any sort of I don't know, arousal, or I don't know what a little
boys pull on their penises from the time that they know it's there.
Oh, so I know. It's a normal
little
thing.
Girls are.
But I've never seen her do it. So it was really weird hearing the daycare person say, yeah, so Lucy was just like laying all up on the couch with her underwear. But she wasn't like making me feel bad about it. She wanted to make sure I knew it was normal. But I was like, I've never seen her do that. So maybe she's a little bit of a voyeur. So I don't know. Go girl. Anyway, moving on. So, but our sexual health, and when we were talking about our earlier days, for me, as far as I know, there was nothing to create any negative experience. I think that because I was so in love with my boyfriend and we dated for a long time after. Hi, Corey. Sorry, you can't stay with us too. Corey just jumped in and says she can't stay for this one, but you can watch it later. It'll be there. I'm really glad that I had that. It's just interesting that later on, it's not just the one time. It's the experiences that you have. It can change how you are, or just as you age, your body, lack of confidence, all kinds of stuff. But anyways, we're talking about when we're younger. So how was you said that your family is Catholic and you were told not to have sex before marriage. Was there any conversation about that, or was it just don't do it?
So, and that was the thing. And again, and it's interesting because my mom, her, first partner was my father, and they were married for 25 years. So she was, a very big push on no sex before marriage. I went to a Catholic high school. I remember the video that we saw in terms of sex education was this woman giving birth. Maybe that's why I have children now, because I was like, that is fucking horrendous. I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. But there was, and the thing is, the conversation was always that it's a sin, that's when you're going to hell, it's damnation. So there wasn't, my parents didn't necessarily shy away from it. My dad would never have that conversation with me. Like, I remember, and I do things for shock value. So I remember having a coffee with my dad one day, and I was like, well, I have to go to the doctor. And he was like, why? And I was like, I need to get birth control. And he like
Oh,
didn't even
yeah.
know how to have a conversation. Like, you know, and I did it just because I was being smug. I wasn't even having sex then. I just got really bad cramps. But, you know, him just like feeling really uncomfortable and awkward, I thought was really funny, because I was like, yeah, just think about some guy sticking it to your kid. Like, that's uncomfortable. But my parents weren't, it wasn't that they're, you know, it's not that they were like, oh, you know, let's not talk about sex, but it wouldn't have been a conversation I would have had with them. I have those conversations with my mom, and my sister and I are very open about that now, probably a little bit too open. But at the time, there was not really that much of a conversation. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and not having, knowing that it's something you're not supposed to do, almost, and it almost makes it one of those things that you want to do more, because you're like, well, nobody's going to tell me I can't do something.
That's like
Bullshit.
everything. Like, don't tell your kid they can't drink and stuff like that or do
Yeah,
drugs. They're going to
yeah,
go do it. Like, I've told my kids,
yeah,
it's probably better not to do drugs. I said, but I'm assuming at some point you guys are going to at least smoke marijuana, and you're going to have sex. And I
yeah,
even predicted, I said, Marcus, by the time you're 16, 17, you
yeah.
probably will have had sex. He's like, oh my God, Mom, no. I'm like, well, let's just, I've
Will
offered to
you
buy
buy
him
him
condoms.
condoms?
I
Okay.
just said I've offered to buy him condoms. I've offered. He doesn't want me to come with him to buy condoms. He doesn't. He's like, if you buy me condoms, I'll just fill them up with water and toss them. So the maturity level is really low. But at some point, I think I'll sense a bit of a. I think I'll sense. I'm an intuitive. Maybe I'll just sense not so much that he's become sexually active, but that it's maybe time to buy the condoms. But it's interesting
Yeah.
because when you talk about the birth control, it reminded me that I was on birth control before my first sexual experience, and that was because of my period. But my mom was long gone, and before like 4 years had gone by, and I remember I ended up trying to talk to my aunt that I was living with, and I think it probably surprised her that I talked to her, and just she had to deal with like I wasn't her kid. I'd only been living with her for maybe 6 months, I think. Yeah. So I hadn't even been living with her very long. And oh, it was a little bit awkward. It really was. It wasn't a comfortable conversation because her kids were so much younger. This all of a sudden here she gets a teenager who then becomes sexually active during that time. It was grade 13. It wasn't
Yeah.
like I was too young. She didn't have to worry about those things. Like I said, I was already on birth control, but I don't know how she talked to her kids about sex later on, but it was definitely not the most comfortable thing. It was kind of odd.
Uh,
But anyways,
okay.
okay,
So, all
go
right,
ahead.
let's go through these questions, because I want to
Yeah.
make sure that we talk, because we definitely need to talk about masturbation. We definitely need
Okay,
to
well
have
then go ahead.
conversation about.
Do it.
All right. So, well, I mean, that was one thing that I think was really important to bring up, was a conversation about masturbation, because we, as a society, I don't think that there is enough open dialogue around our bodies and celebrating our bodies, especially as women. There's, when we use statements like slut shaming, and, that's a very derogatory term, because again, men can be celebrated, in a sense that it's like, oh, well, he's just that guy. He's just being
Going
a
is
guy. Where
out.
it's,
And yeah,
yeah, exactly. Whereas like it's a girl, it's like, oh, she's a slut. And it's like, well,
yeah.
that shouldn't be so. And I mean, there should also, and then that gets into the culture of making other women feel bad about those things. And that also then dives into masturbation, and how for a lot of women, maybe they don't have a regular sexual practice either with their partner or a sexual practice with themselves. And I think it's really difficult for a lot of women to even think about masturbation, talk about masturbation, or even know how to masturbate, how to,
What? Okay, this is what I don't
yeah.
understand. I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering how much religion plays into this because nobody talked to me about not touching my body. In fact, I've told all my kids, even Lucy, your body's your body. You can touch it all you want up in your room.
Yeah.
If you have questions about your body, let me know. But it's your body. Please know your body. Look at it. Get a mirror. Check it out. For
Wow.
myself, yeah, for sure. And for myself, no one ever. I think that if you're told, like you were saying, that growing up Catholic, well, sex is a sin. Well, so is masturbation.
Yeah.
So if no one was talking about your body and that you should know your body, then. But I'm like, how? I would have been diddling myself when I was like 7. I don't know. I mean, I don't really remember, but I know when I was a preteen, I was making myself happy.
See,
It's never crossed
but
my mind.
yeah, and for me, again, it's sex is a sin, masturbation is a sin. I'm not Catholic. I don't
Interesting.
subscribe to it, but
I
it's
know.
never
And
a
no offense to anyone
conversation.
who is Catholic. We're just talking about the dogma and, that
Exactly.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is. So, but yeah, not having a conversation about that. Like, I know tons of women, for example, who don't even have orgasms during sex, have never had an orgasm. And I'm in my 30s, and I know people in their 30s and older than me who have never had an orgasm during sex.
Okay,
They've
I'm
never been
just
able to get
saying
off.
that I'm not quite sure. I have to say that so in my mind, I'm like, what do I
Yes.
have to say? I am curious. I'm really hoping to just be rocked off my rocker. I don't know what the other thing to
Yeah.
say with my next sexual partner but this is moving into today's sex talk, so we'll wait for
Yeah.
that one. But
Yeah.
um, I'm not sure that, you know what? I think learning about sex, I don't, in some cultures, young people will actually have sex with older people to, I know, not in a creepy pedophilia way, but to help them to understand sex. Because if you're really with another virgin, what the hell are they going to teach you, right? How are you going to
Yeah.
learn together? And um, and I'm not saying that we should at all. I'm just saying because that's hard to imagine too. I don't know. I'm feeling kind of awkward right now. But I mean, like, if you grew up and you're touching your body and you love your body, and you're like, my body's great, and then you get with another person, but how do you learn about sex and what you're supposed to
Yeah.
do to have an orgasm, to feel great? How do you even know how to communicate what you want? How do you even know what you want? So
Yeah.
yeah, like how do people even learn those things? Anyone want to share? Who's watching? There's 5 people on right now. So what do you think? Like,
Well,
Siobhan, go
and I
ahead.
think I think the first
Sorry,
thing
I'm
is, again,
itching.
having that, learning to know your body separate from
Yes.
your partner, because
Yes.
that, yeah, in that being the first step is, like you said, depending on what your upbringing was, whether it was religious or whether it was non-denominational, depending on what you were told and what if you're given a bag and saying, here, this is your stick,
Yeah.
good luck. For me, for example, I spent my first years with my boyfriend, who's also a virgin. So neither really one of us knew what the fuck we were doing. So that was 6 years of my life, and nobody had told me anything. I didn't have any resources. It's not like I was Googling on the internet. Porn wasn't a
No.
thing for me to just
Right.
go get at the time. So, and then that's the problem too, is if you're really young, for example, you're inexperienced, and suddenly you're looking to porn to show you
Mm-hmm.
what you should be doing, that's not giving you a very healthy idea of, because porn sex is not the same as intimate, loving relationship sex. There is a huge spectrum. So depending on the kind of porn that you tap into, and we'll have a conversation about porn, but that's, you not having that base for like what's even normal, what's acceptable. Like, there's a lot of women who are like, I don't even know if my body is normal, because if you've never seen your clitoris or your vagina, and you've never taken a mirror and you've looked down there, or maybe you're like, maybe I don't look like what everybody else looks like. I don't know if this is normal. Like, do my boobs look normal? Like, what do I look like naked compared to other people? So there ends up being this really, not having any idea whether you're normal. And again, there is no such thing as a normal body. You're all perfect. We're all going to look different. Nothing is exactly symmetrical. Like, that's, humans. What do we do? But in developing a strong, connected relationship with a partner, you have to have that with yourself first. So,
That's so true.
so if you're not even somebody who masturbates, for example, on a regular basis, and maybe it's just, sometimes you're like, well, I'm not really a sexual person. I know people who say that, and some people, the sex drive obviously varies considerably depending on where you fall, and that's okay. But even if you try to make a practice of masturbating, and for a lot of people, it's like, well, where do I even start? You can order cute little tiny little bullets on the internet, delivered in discreet packages
You're
right to
talking
yourself.
about you're talking about the sex life of today. That's this next week's conversation.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. Well, I mean, the sex life of before, I mean,
Let's
so
go
the sex
back to the
life,
question I asked about
okay.
how do you learn about sex? How
Uh,
like this is a really big actual real thing. Like, how are you
yeah.
supposed to know? And I guess right now you could look into things, and maybe because I grew up
Mm.
I was 15 in 1990. Oh wow, you're like I wasn't even alive yet. Anyway,
I was alive.
oh you were. When were you born?
Yeah.
1989 or something like that? When?
86.
Oh, 86. Okay, you're way
Uh-huh.
older than I thought you were. You're
I
ancient.
know.
Okay.
I know.
So, but at that time period, so when I was
Yeah.
15, thinking
Yeah.
about sex, which I hadn't had yet, but
Mhm.
how would you find out except for talking to your friends, coming across a porn video like in actual
Mhm.
cassette tape, or
Yeah.
finding the magazine, and that wasn't really. But it's interesting reading. Like I read the stories, and so the stories kind of talked about that, but it's still it wasn't. That's still not the pornography of today, though. It really wasn't. They were actually
No.
kind of like erotic stories, which
And they
I
were
really enjoyed.
storytelling. Yeah. Well, that's like the
No,
50
I
Shades
love
of
them.
Grey
I thought
stuff.
they were
Yeah.
not necessarily. They weren't
No, but
all.
I just mean like it
50 Shades
tells a
of Grey was
story.
sadomasochistic. I mean, that's not. It was
Yeah.
just a story about sex.
But
It
I just mean
wasn't
like
like.
that it follows a story. Like
Oh
there's a
yes, yes, yes.
story there. Whereas like, some of the porn today, it's like there might be a storyline, but like
That's not
there's
the
a lot
whole
of it's
point.
not
It's
a
like right
story.
into
No.
it. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's not the porn has changed so much since that time period.
Yeah.
It's not at all the same at all. You got amateurs on there, just anyone making a
Yeah.
video of themselves and sticking it out there. And that I remember I got really worried about my own kids coming across porn. But then I'm like, what do I have control over? I could block it for
Mhm.
it's the same thing we talked about. Tell your kid not to do it. They're going to find a way. And so
Yeah.
what I make sure to do is talk to my kids about their body and healthy to be healthy and what it means about, speaking what you want. I guess it's about
Yep.
exploring when you're in a relationship with somebody and I guess this is a thought to have a conversation with my kids about is once you like you said this before, once you're comfortable with your body and
Mhm.
you are comfortable with setting boundaries and saying this is what feels good, this is what doesn't, and I guess you just have
Mhm.
to explore and maybe look things up that aren't pornography but different things about sexual positions or ways to have an orgasm or learning those things because otherwise you're not going to really know. You're not going to find that
Well,
out
and
from your peers like as you
yeah.
even as
Well,
adults.
and I think that again, like we're saying, the first thing is developing like a healthy sexual practice with yourself because there's a difference between having self-confidence and sexual self-confidence. Those are two very different things because I can be like I am fucking hot, but all of a sudden when I get naked, I mean I know that I know women who can't have sex with the lights on because they're not comfortable with themselves, their sexual selves, or they're the person who's going to put on their clothes before they go to the bathroom and take that after sex pee. Or, they're not comfortable with themselves sexually. So it makes it very difficult to then have that comfortable conversation with your partner. And like you said, like if you don't know what your boundaries are, you can't express those in a healthy way. You won't be able to have, healthy conversation. And the other thing we haven't even touched on yet is like 1 in 4 women has been sexually assaulted, and the stats are not so great for men either. But
Hmm.
depending on then if you've had a very traumatic sexual experience at some point during your sexual history, that is also going to drastically change the conversation, how you approach sex, how you feel about sex, how you feel about yourself and sex, and
And
then
how and who
that's
you choose as a sexual partner.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
because if you have had a negative sexual experience, if you've been violated in
Mm-hmm.
any way, then
Mm-hmm.
who are you going to choose to be your sexual partner when you actually do have a choice? It might be
Yeah.
difficult to pick that loving, nurturing relationship because that's not something you're familiar with. I think that the early sexual experiences, even when it comes to your 3-year-old playing with themselves. How you react
Yeah.
to that, even when they're 3, has an impact on them. Now, if you're a parent and were embarrassed by that, it's okay. I love them, that, right? Like we have to move forward with whatever we've done. We have to move forward. But here's some suggestions about having this healthy sexual relationship with yourself so that you can have one with another person. Or if you choose not to, that's fine too. Whatever you want to do, make yourself happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, One of the things that we've said it before is about when you're able to nurture yourself and you can nurture others, it's not just that's not the only thing. You also be able to receive nurturing. And this is something that I'm really learning. And I think this has an impact on my own sexual self as an adult because not receiving nurturing is huge.
Yeah.
Another thing is being able to communicate your needs. And I don't know what it'd be like to be a shy person, or someone who like why would we not communicate our needs? I think the thing is that if we don't know what our needs are, our wants, um, and we're not really certain about ourselves, sometimes that comes with youth, and maybe that's when you shouldn't be having sex. Communication is, you mentioned that numerous times when we were talking about the subject, the importance of
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, communication, like that's a huge one. Like if you're approaching it with a partner, if you have an unfulfilling sex life, for example, it's really important to be able to communicate that and to be able to say, what are your desires? What, like you said, what are your boundaries? Boundaries are a huge one. Having an open mind and being able to approach a conversation with specific requests. So maybe there's something that you specifically want to try, and approaching the conversation, maybe you don't approach it in a moment of intimacy. Maybe you approach it at a neutral point where you're away from the bedroom, you're away from that sexual landscape, but say, like, this is something maybe I'd be interested in trying with my partner. But to be able to speak up with your partner about that, and to be able to clarify something if they're wanting to try something, you're not really sure, but making sure that you're very clear with your needs, and especially if there's sexual trauma there, that your partner is, as much as you can make them comfortable and aware of like where your limits are, like that's very, very important.
Well,
Because,
and going back to when we're children, like when we're young
yeah,
and coming into our sexual self, right?
yeah,
It starts from that time period. And so I would hope that, I mean, we can't go back in time, but
right,
even as we move into next week's conversation about our current sexual self, it's important to think about what it was for us, about how this all began for us, so that we
yeah,
can have those important conversations, so that we can explore our own bodies right now. But it's going back to thinking about who we were when we were younger as we became sexual beings, because we're not
yeah,
born sexual beings. It comes into, yes, I know from a young age you can find your gender expression or your sexual attraction even before
yeah,
you really come into puberty, but that usually doesn't start until later on with the surge of hormones coming into adolescence. So
yeah,
and the other thing is allowing for vulnerability. So I think maybe
yeah,
next week when we talk about the choices of partners, I mean, you might want to have a one night stand and you're going to get like a heated, lustful, passionate moment, and then it's over. You're like, oh, thanks, bye bye. And those can be fun at times, but then there's the importance of having a loving relationship so that you can, like you said, express your
mm-hmm.
desires or what you might want to try and have those conversations. But not everybody has a partner like that. Like not
No,
everyone is in a. There are people who really haven't been in a secure long-term relationship. So maybe when we go back to this next week and talk about you know, sex as an adult and making choices, that might be something that we could address.
I also think it's important in terms of one night stands. And again, remembering that we are neither for nor against anything. If you do you. I'm the biggest proponent of fuck your sillies out. That's what I say to all of my circle of people is fuck your sillies out. Whatever you want to do, you do that thing. If as long as you're doing it in a healthy way that is not hurting yourself or other people,
Yeah,
you do those things.
it's
But when it comes
consensual,
to,
and that's what's
yes,
important.
yes. And also remembering that you can change your mind at any time. Just because you said yes 2 minutes ago doesn't mean that you have to continue to say yes. But in terms of looking at one night stands as an example, it's also important to ask yourself why you're doing those things. Is it coming from a place of empowerment or disempowerment? Are you
Hmm.
having sex with somebody because you feel like shit about yourself and you are trying to use another person to make you feel better in that moment? Or are you doing it because this is something that you want to do, that you feel empowered to do, that makes you feel good, that in this moment you feel okay with? Not that you're going to go away from it and feel like shit about yourself because you did something that maybe you're going to regret in the morning. Because there's definitely a different energy that comes from when you're doing something because it's pleasurable, because you're enjoying yourself, because it's a really great time, versus you're doing something because, one, maybe you got kind of pushed into it, two, you came from like a drunken night or something, and maybe you're making bad decisions, or you're fighting with a friend, or you just broke up with a boyfriend, or like there's lots of reasons why we all do things, but looking at your motivations for why you're approaching a sexual situation is also really important too, because there's nothing worse than leaving, doing the walk of shame and feeling like shit about what you just did.
Right. I guess we
I
all have
can
those
speak to these
moments.
things.
You
Yeah.
know, I'm like, so in my mind, I was running through a couple scenarios, but it's amazing how things change over time. Like think about
Yeah.
when you're younger and the choices you might make if you're with friends or you're at a party and you got to, and you feel like you should fit in. And oh my God, I'm so glad I wasn't that kid. I didn't do anything to fit in. I was totally just me on the outside doing my thing. And, luckily I was never pressured to do anything. I
Yeah.
didn't have any negative experiences. So I'm looking forward to our conversation next week when we talk about, today. And you've mentioned some of the points that we're going to go over and making those choices for ourselves and also in a partnership. And so I look forward to that. So any last
Yeah.
words on sex from the past?
Again, I think like the big takeaway for sex from the past, you can't change the things that have already happened, but going into your future self, looking at your past self, it's first developing that like sexual relationship with yourself. So again, if masturbation isn't part of your dialogue right now, go get that mirror if you're a lady, or go stand in a mirror if you're a guy. Really get to know your body, because the sooner you develop that loving sexual relationship with yourself, and again, we're gonna have to talk about trauma and how that fits in here because it's a huge, huge part of it. But being able to know yourself in a healthy sexual way is going to allow you to express that sexuality with a partner in whatever way you choose going forward. So yeah, definitely first being able to, to get in there, flick your bean, do what you got to do, stroke it off, whatever, but like make that part. Because again, even if you feel like one, you're not really even that like a sexual person, the more that you do things of a sexual nature, the more that your body's going to respond and want more of those things. So, if you're in a marriage right now and not having a lot of sex, if you were to start masturbating and then try to introduce sex with your partner, and then the day after, sex with yourself. So you're starting to develop more of a consistency. The more consistency that you have with that, the more that it's going to become something that your body is naturally going to want a little bit more of. But then we also have to talk about, again, mentally, like where that comes in. Because if you're not getting your cup filled, and again, that's the conversations for the next 2 weeks. But
Yes.
yeah, how that fills in.
So the
Lots
last
to
thing that
say.
I want to say about sex from the past is that it's important to acknowledge it is in the past, but if you're wondering about how you can improve the relationship you have with yourself and to have a better, more fulfilling sex life in general, then you need to think about where you came from and the experience that you've had and really give some love to those parts of yourself. Because as we always say in all of our journeys with people, the past never goes away. We just kind of tuck it in. And it's about time to just reflect on that, give it some love, and then you can move into the next part of the love. So we'll regroup and we'll talk about that next
Yeah.
week. Thank you guys so much for joining us, Candice and Siobhan,
Next week's
Chaos
going to be
Calm.
fun.
It
Yeah,
is going to be
next week is
fun.
going
It's
to
going
be
to
a
be
lot of fun.
pretty.
And
Yeah.
also, if there's anything in the comments, you guys want to leave some comments, things that you want to hear in the conversation. Like we said, next week we're talking about, where you are today, your relationships, whether it's you're single, whether you're in a marriage, whether you're like banging like rabbits in that marriage, whether you've been on a dry spell for the last few years. These are the conversations we want to have. So if there are things
Or
that
if
you
you're
want
single.
addressed specifically, if you're single, yeah, and you're wanting to know, again, in terms of dating, in terms of online dating, in
Mhm.
terms of, where to what you should be looking for, the kinds of things that your red flags and your deal breakers. Like there's a lot of topics that we can kind of dive into. So if there's anything specific that you guys want to hear next week or the following week as we go into future sexual experiences, leave us a comment, send us a direct message. We will definitely address those things because we want to make sure that we are touching on things that are things you guys want to hear about. So yeah,
Exactly.
leave us the messages.
All right. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
that's
Thanks,
it.
Siobhan. And we'll see you guys next
Okay.
week. Bye.
See you next week.